All right, the last section of Activity 2.3.1 is my favorite, something called an SQL or SQL injection exploit. And different people pronounce SQL different ways. I always pronounce it SQL, but a lot of people pronounce it SQL. Regardless, SQL is a language for interacting with a database, which is represented by tables. So down here you can see an example for our main e-commerce scenario we've been studying, the Bikes, Boards, and Beyond e-commerce site. And here's what could appear in a database. It's a table of information. You've got columns for different properties, so like a number, a name, a type, and a unit price. And each row represents one item. So for example, this says that an RDS Bike 3.0 has a type of a road bike and it costs $499, and the unique identifier for that bike is number 101. So rows represent an individual item and a column represents a property of that item. Now I will briefly describe some SQL or SQL examples of code. This is not something you'd be expected to write, but if you're interested, you can look into this a little bit more. So I'm going to show what a table could look like and then what this command will do to it. So the first type of command is an insert command. So this says we're going to insert into a table that's named products the following values: 401, sleek and steady paddle, paddleboard, 1350.00. And what that essentially would do is in this table, it would add another row that has those four values in it. So 401 would go here, sleek and steady paddle would go here, paddleboard would go here, and 1350.00 would go there. So that's what an insert command does. Another command is a select command, which is used for reading data from a table. So what this says is select the following properties from the table: the number property, the name property, and the unit price property from the products table where the type is road bike. So what this will do is for every entry in this table where the type is road bike, which are the first two, oops, I can't select that, it will get all the properties that are number, name, and unit price. So that means we're going to grab 101 RDS Bike 3.0 in 499.00, as well as 102 Comfort Bike 7.0 in 9.95. We will not be capturing the road bike information because the type was not specified as one of the properties being selected. Another command you could do is an update command, which is used for modifying a table. This one says update the products table, where we're going to set the unit price to be $100,000, where the number is 301. So there is only one row where the number is 301, and it's going to update the unit price to be $1,000. So this would change. And it has a little note here: if we did not have the where clause, this would change all the unit prices to $1,000. The last section here is delete, which does what you think it would do. It says delete from the products table any entry where the number is 101. So that would just delete this row because it's the only row that's 101. So that's what SQL or SQL code looks like. What an SQL injection does is it allows a hacker to modify the code that was intended to run on the server by injecting some other SQL code that was not intended. So here's how we're going to view that. I'm going to go to the virtual machine, go to the connections folder, and open up this cybersecurity practice training website. The username is admin and the password is password, and I'm going to log in. This time, though, we're going to go, just like last time, sorry, we're going to go to site security, we're going to go to low settings so that we can see the exploit in action. So now we're going to go to the SQL injection part of the website, so that's right here. Yeah, go away. Alright, so we're to that website. So I don't think that's actually important for us to know right here. So it wants us to type in the number 1 and see what happens when we submit. If I hit submit, we get all this information. And so just so you know, what this form is doing is if you type in someone's ID, it's going to give you all the information that's in a database associated with that ID. So apparently this table that we can't see has a first name column, a surname column, a phone column, an address column, and and an address column. So those are the 4 additional columns. So there's a total of 5: the ID, the first name, the surname, the phone, and the address. And the address just happens to have 2 lines of data to it. And if we typed in a different ID, maybe we'll get more information. Let's see if there's an ID2. Sure, there's an ID2, and we're getting all the information. So there must be a select command being run here. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to click the View Source button, and we're going to kind of see what that shows us. And this is the PHP code that's running on the web server that's generating that output. So, see if I can make this bigger. Make bigger. There we go. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. It can be very overwhelming, and once again, you don't need to know all this coding. But we're going to focus on a little piece of this that's important. So what this does is it runs this select command. This is one of the SQL queries we were looking at before. Let me be clear, this is actually PHP code. I said that kind of backwards. This code is PHP, but this PHP server code is going to execute an SQL command. And when it builds the SQL command, you can see it's selecting the first name property, a last name property, a phone property, an address property from a user's database where the user ID equals an ID number, and the ID number is whatever the person types in. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to type something in funny for what the ID would be. And the funny thing we're going to type in is this whole thing. So I'm going to go back to my VM, and I'm going to type in 1 apostrophe space, what's the rest of it? Go away. Or 1 equals 1 hashtag. I think I didn't miss anything. Oh, missed a semicolon. So I'm going to semicolon after the 1. And you'll puzzle at that and go, what on earth is that? I have no idea. I hit submit. Wait a minute. Site security. Oh, it's still on high? I wanted it to be on low. Submit. Okay, let me try that one more time. So I'm in SQL Injection again, and let me type in the fun message that I wanted. So it was going to be, what again? 1 apostrophe space 1 equals 1 semicolon pound sign. Okay. I'll hit submit again. Aha! That's not what I wanted. Did I type that in right? Let's see. 1 apostrophe. Oh, did I miss the or? Oh, I missed the or. That's what I'm missing. So 1 apostrophe or 1 equals 1. Now let me try that again. Boom! Oh my gosh. Well, before, if you remember, when I just typed in the number 1, it showed me just the information for the person with an ID of 1. Now it's showing me the information of everybody that's in the database. Like, whoa, that seems really bad. So why is that happening? So this is a little bit in the weeds, but I'll see if I can describe it. They show here what happens when you type that in as the ID. What it says here is it's going to fill in this information for where it said ID before. Here's where there was ID. This is what's being filled in right now, this red stuff. What you might be able to see is that this says where the user ID equals apostrophe 1 apostrophe. So it's checking if the ID is 1, or is it true that 1 equals 1? This is a statement that's always true. So that means this is going to select everything from the database where anything, right? It doesn't matter. This is going to be a statement that's always true. If their ID is 5, doesn't matter because this is an or statement. It says either it matches the ID correctly or it is true that 1 equals 1. And because 1 equals 1 is always true, it's just going to grab everything from the database. So this is probably the most classic version of an SQL injection exploit. Another one, this one takes a little bit longer to type in, but it's using a union command. And it works on the same basic principle. So it is going to be 1 apostrophe to start with. Then I'm going to type in this union command. Then select. All right, then I'm going to put table schema. Then I'm going to put a comma, then table name. Then after that is table type. Followed by that is version from information. I know this is a lot. Underscore schema dot tables exclamation mark pound. Just to be safe, I'm going to copy that, I hope. See if I messed it up. All right, I'm going to hit submit. Oh my goodness. All that information shows up. There's actually even more information. What this is giving us is information about other tables in the database. We're getting like tons of information. So not only are we searching through the main table, the users table, what this union command is doing is it's building another select statement that's selecting table information from the main kind of structure of the database. So we get to find out things about, let's see if we can figure out anything in here. So it looks like there's a table called of engines that has 10 pieces of information to it. Am I reading that right? Because we've got the table schema. We're getting the table name. Oh yeah, that's right. So this information here is a table name. So there's a table called character sets in the database. There's a table called collations. There's a table called collation character set. We're getting all this information about the database. And if you're a hacker, oh, this is just like a smorgasbord of information. So this is a different type of SQL injection, which is allowing us to do not only a select from the original table, but from another table that we wanted to gain information from. The third one is a little bit shorter, so it's another union select exploit. So let me make sure I got that right. So once again, it starts with one apostrophe, and then it's another union select, first underscore name, comma, last underscore name, comma, user, comma, password. Uh-oh, this sounds scary. From users, semicolon, pound. And so I'm going to look through here a little bit and go, like, why would I know to search for that? So if I look through all this information we got before, there might be a table in here called, let's see if I can find it. I hope it's in here. I think there's a table called users. Let's see if I can find it. So Control F, users. Oh, here it is. So you can see that there is a table called users. So if I know that there's a table called users, I could run an SQL injection where I try to get everything from the users table. So if I hit submit this time, what you'll see is I get all this information. Specifically, I'm going to start getting things that show up in the address field, which are passwords. So we've got a first name like hack. We've got a password, I think, is this field right here, maybe? Or is that the user? Okay, so sorry, the first name is hack. The last name is me. The user is 1337. This password isn't actually a password, it's the hash of a password. But if you actually know this, there are techniques for figuring out what the original password is. So we've kind of gone through the process of doing SQL injection and getting more information from the database. And eventually this would allow us to gain access to a user's account information that we shouldn't have. Alright, so how do we stop this? Well, let's go to high. So if we go to the site security, we switch over to high, we hit submit, and we go back to SQL injection. I'll do the simplest SQL injection, which is 1 apostrophe or 1 equals 1 semicolon hashtag. If I hit submit, this time you'll see nothing shows up because on the high security settings it's actually blocking the injection. All right, so next we're going to do is we're going to click the View Source button on the SQL Injection page, and then there should be a Compare button down here, and that's what I want to look at. So let me make this a little bit bigger. This screen is really hard to resize, which is annoying. Come on. Boom. Come on. Jeez. All right, I'm going to hit Compare. And this is going to show us the code for both high, medium, and low. And so if you look at high first, one thing that it does is so I'll go through this kind of little by little. This is a command that retrieves the ID that the user types in. So this should be a number, but they might type in SQL code. There's a couple commands here. One that strips away slashes. So those can be special characters that are used to do an SQL injection. There's also a command that adds escape sequences. So that makes it so that the ID doesn't contain special characters that could be used in an SQL injection. So that's what happens in the medium setting. The high setting. In the medium setting, it only does the escape sequence security setting. And then in the low one, it doesn't do anything. It just like whatever the user types in, we use it as the ID. So clearly this is the weakest thing to do. You're like user type whatever you want in here that allows for an injection to occur. In the medium, they strip out, they replace all the characters that could be used, not all of them, but so I believe what this one does is it will take things like apostrophes and make it so that you can't actually inject an apostrophe into the SQL. And then the other command that happens on high is strip slashes, which gets rid of slash symbols that can be used in a SQL injection. So you once again don't need to know what these commands are really doing, but you should know that they are security measures in the code that are trying to protect the ID data so it actually ends up being a real number and not being some secret SQL code that's being injected into this command and allowing the user to access information they're not supposed to get. All right, that's it.